My brain works like a Ferrari. My body works like a Ferrari. All of my hormone levels and all that stuff that was on the floor came all the way back up. And it's literally just from light. I've had 3 or 4 other tick bites since that first one, and I've never come back down with Lyme disease. Not a fever, not the shakes, no rashes, like nothing. And that's what's supposed to happen.
We talk a lot about how indoor living, artificial light, EMFs, processed food, and disrupted light dark cycles are contributing to the human chronic illness epidemic. But what about our animals? They are suffering too, perhaps even more so, as they have maybe even more sensitive antennae to these things than we humans do. Who knows? Well, my guest today, Jackie Jolie, she's really tapped into the animal world. She spent 20 years as a equine and canine body worker. So she is basically a combination of a physical therapist and an energy worker for dogs and horses, and particularly, I do have a previous interview with Jackie. If you want to go back and listen to that, I wanted to bring her back on to dig in a little bit more about how we can help our sweet little cats and dogs and horses and whatever other little creatures you have in your life. So I hope you enjoy this. We get into the animals, we get into the importance of red light. Please share this with anyone you know who has a pet, particularly if that pet is unwell or has, some kind of chronic condition that they've been trying to solve other ways that haven't helped. Maybe this will. It's always worth a try. All right. And for your human red light needs, please visit bondcharge.com, put QBC in the discount box at checkout. And to stay in connection with your circadian rhythm, download the My Circadian app. Practitioners, get the practitioner bundle so that you can give a code to all of your clients or patients as a way for people to really understand how to manage their light dark cycles and how to get the most out of optimizing light in their lives, because it is so important. And of course, if you would like to become certified in applied quantum biology like Jackie Jolie is, look what she went and did with her deep knowledge. Visit qbcpod.com and click on Institute. If you just want to transition into a more light-informed life, join our free community. Again, it's at qbcpod.com. I would love to see you there. All right, enjoy my chat with Jackie.
Jackie Jolie, welcome back to the QVC podcast. I'm Meredith, and thanks for having me on again. It's a pleasure always. All right, I'm excited to dig in. You have been so busy building a business, which I love watching you do that, and I'm so excited for you, and you're doing such a good job. So before we get into it, let's just rewind a little of how, and just tell us how you landed in this whole quantum biology light therapy world. What was going on for you personally? My gosh, what been going on? Yeah, so for any of the followers and listeners, if they haven't heard my story yet on any of the other podcasts, I've been an animal lover my whole life. Now that I know what I know, I definitely came here this lifetime to help them, and I'm on my path. But as a kid, wanted to be a veterinarian, always loved animals, bringing them into the house, critters of all sorts. Life takes you different paths, so I did not become a vet, but I did become a equine and canine body worker, which is just basically like a physical therapist for animals. The majority of my clients were performance, horses and dogs, ACL tears, rehab issues, laminitis, or just performance in general. Very rewarding. I've been doing that for close to 20 years. And due to that being more of a natural, holistic path for working with animals versus a traditional veterinary path, it actually was super rewarding and taught me so much to have a more natural, holistic approach even to my own health. And so working out, riding horses, playing polo, eating paleo, strength training, all of that stuff fell into my timeline and my path because of what I was doing with animals and watching how they moved, watching how they compensated. Still, one of my most favorite things is to sit at an airport and just watch how people move and be like, that is not normal. I can't believe that's comfortable. So the body is fascinating. I've always been super fascinated with how intelligent it is and how it works. And we are always taught when we do start learning about performance and rehab that it's diet and exercise and sleep that are your main facets for health. And we all pretty much believe that. And there is a lot of truth to those things. They're very important for our health. But even when I thought that I was doing all of those things like 90 to 95% correct, I still ended up with Lyme disease. I had a tick bite and I came down with Lyme disease at 35. And that thing is brutal. Luckily, we caught it soon enough. And some of that path was just my allopathic system, which is the traditional way. They want to give you 3 months of antibiotics. Well, I already knew about the microbiome at that point, our gut being our second brain. And I just knew that wasn't a good option. And at that time, too, my body was just like, absolutely not. So I left that as plan B, and I did heal Lyme disease naturally with some herbs and herbal tinctures, bumping up that tightness of the diet and the sleep to help my body recover. However, when I healed from the Lyme disease, I still had a ton of leftover symptoms that I couldn't recover from. So I was 36 years old, quote unquote healthy in traditional senses. And I was still struggling to recover from workouts. I was still struggling to get my libido up. I was still struggling to get a lot of my just hormones and just feeling like good at 36. And again, the traditional path just wanted to put me on replacement hormones for the rest of my life. And again, my body was like, hell no. And so luckily, I did have a good friend of mine. You guys have had him on the podcast before, Jim Laird. He's a strength coach. He actually was the one that got me into paleo and strength training and helped me a ton with good health. He had learned about Jack Kruse and quantum biology, light water magnetism. And he just shared a couple of podcasts. And so I started listening and it all made sense. The truth just hits you in your gut like it's supposed to. And I was like, okay, it's nature and light and dark cycles. Like that makes sense. But I realized I had not been living like that for a decade or more. So it made sense that had lowered my redox potential, lowered my immune system so that when I got the tick bite, I actually came down with Lyme disease. And as always, my nerdy self wanted to make me the experiment. So I just started slowly changing and adapting small, light life behaviors, patterns, new habits. And in a short period of time, like 3 weeks, I already started noticing differences in my body that I hadn't had in 20 years. And I hadn't changed anything but light. And I was like, okay, there is something to this. This is really powerful. And so I just kept going down that path. And it completely changed my life 360 between erupting a relationship and starting a new business and coming up with an invention. And then also just optimizing my health and my brain function and all functions in my body. I'll be 42 this year. I never went on replacement hormones to this day still. And that may come eventually, but at this time it's not. My brain works like a Ferrari. My body works like a Ferrari. All of my hormone levels and all that stuff that was on the floor came all the way back up. And it's literally just from light. I've had 3 or 4 other tick bites since that first one, and I've never come back down with Lyme disease. Not a fever, not the shakes, no rashes, like nothing. And that's what's supposed to happen. We're supposed to get exposed to chemicals and toxins and bacteria and viruses. And yeah, you might still get some symptoms from that exposure, but that's your intelligent body now taking over to say, okay, like we found an invader and we're going to rest and make you a little sickly so you'll rest so that we can heal and overcome that. So that was how I got into the knowledge. And then obviously I was just sitting on a beach one day trying to get some more light to help my body. And God, just the light source, whatever you want to call it, just literally downloaded an invention idea to my brain of a full body red light therapy device for animals. So that was the industry that I was loving and helping. And we were seeing patterns of continual illness and then also illnesses that we'd never seen before, like dogs literally having brain tumors and seizures that just make them die. Horses
That's
having
crazy. Yeah.
Wi-Fi. Anyways, and then like horses constantly having like metabolic issues, dogs and cats having metabolic issues. And now that I've dug into the statistics, animals' health statistics are just as gloom and doom as their human counterpart. 1 in 2 getting cancer, 1 in 3 having some type of arthritis or arthritis issues, dying
It's
early.
true.
Right?
I live in Westchester, which is a county like just north of Manhattan. So if there's a weird thing, like if there's a thing that you can pay money for it, like I will drive by it at some point. So there is near me, and I drove by the other day and I was like, what? It's a feline oncology center. That's all they do. Cat cancer.
And it is
Not even like a feline veterinarian, which they also have, but just oncology. And I was like, what is happening? What is going on?
with cancer.
And
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
sorry, yeah, no, I don't want to dig into cats, but first of all, I just want to wrap up on your personal story because I think the point that you made was really critical for people to understand is that you were healthy across the board, except for the light piece. And that made you more susceptible to Lyme disease. And so it's like there's so many things out there to be afraid of and that the internet tells us to be afraid of, mold and Lyme. And obviously we should exercise caution and test and make sure we do whatever. That being said, when our bodies are working properly, the outcome of interacting with those things is not as debilitating. And our bodies cannot work properly if they have a dysregulated circadian rhythm and we're not getting enough infrared light. That's like after 120 interviews on light, that is just where things are at. People are like, oh, but food matters and oh, but this matters. Like, of course it does. Let's use our whole brain here. We're not compartmentalizing. It's not a binary choice. But if we don't bring light into the equation, our health will suffer no matter what else we're doing. Unless we happen to just have a job where we're outside all day and eat by candlelight and go to bed at 8:00. You're okay then. But everyone else, like we have to think about it.
Yeah.
So that was your moment. That was your awakening around the light topic. And so now you're bringing that to the animals.
Yes.
And we talk a lot about the chronic illness epidemic in people. And you're saying it is just as prevalent with our pets and our babies.
Yes, the numbers are outstanding. And even if we just talk about the topic of cancer, because I like to bring this up too on talks when we talk about animals. So cats are 1 in 2, dogs are 1 in 3, and horses, now they do get cancer, so I'm not going to knock that they don't, but it's not prevalent enough to where they even have a statistical number of 1 in 100 or something. Wow.
So you're saying 1 out of every 3 cats is going to get cancer?
1 in every 2 cats.
1 out of every 2 cats is going to get cancer.
I want to say these numbers because I want us to think about it.
And 1 out of every 3 dogs.
Yes.
That's insane.
And then horses don't really have a number, a nomenclature.
We don't know. Okay.
Now just think about that. What?
That is crazy.
What?
Okay, the first thing that's coming to me is that we're forced to keep our cats inside. I don't, but when I moved to the US, we lived overseas. I moved to the US. I promised the children they could get kittens. In order to be allowed to adopt the kittens, I had to sign a pledge that I would keep them inside. That was literally like, if you care about these animals, you will not let them outside because it reduces their life expectancy. And I was like, okay,
Wow.
so I have to admit, I reneged on that pledge because, of course, my cats go outside. They're animals.
Yeah. Good
But
job.
I share that story because cat owners are told that it's irresponsible to let your cat go outside. So that's my first thought of why cats have such a high cancer rate, is because they're not getting any sunlight.
Peter must have pushed that one. Yeah, exactly where your brain's going. Of course, you are using your full brain because it gets photobiomodulated a lot. But yeah, I think a lot of people, when they know about horses or even a little bit, I think most people would even look at diet there and they would go, horses eat alfalfa and grass. They're herbivores. That's got to make them healthier, which goes back to the whole like vegan carnivore fight, which we won't open up that can of worms here. But in the sport horse world, your horses, your race horses, your multi-million-dollar thoroughbred race horses are eating processed food with sugars in it, staying in a stall, not moving every single day except to run and practice, right? And probably city water that's not filtered, right? So the water is the same toxic water. The processed food is the same processed food your dog and cat are getting inside, right? They're not on their natural diet. So what's the only thing that is actually a little bit different? The environment. So even though horses are staying inside more than what they should as a wild horse, they're still getting more of a light and dark cycle, fresh air, and grounded to the electromagnetic field of the planet, more so than your dog and cat that's inside.
Right.
Why isn't anybody asking that question? I ask vets all the time, and they're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, we're not asking it for our human selves. So
True.
yeah, but our pet, at least people go in and out. We'll go outside.
Yeah.
Okay, so like for this cat cancer situation, they're kept indoors 100% of the time.
Pretty much.
A lot of them, and fed processed food. Okay, what else is wrecking our poor cats?
Just the indoor environment, because of what we know with
Yeah.
quantum biology, I think the light story is the
Yeah.
biggest needle pusher, right? Because yes, we're all living in a much more toxic soup of an environment now. So we have Wi-Fi and electromagnetic fields that are not natural and they're very inflammatory. And our animals are a lot more sensitive than we are, just like children. And so that's affecting them. City water that might have chlorine and fluoride and chemicals and pharmaceuticals in it, the processed food, right? And then not going outside. And even for our dogs, if you live a modern lifestyle where you're gone to the office every day, you might get outside even more than your dog does, right? How sad is that? And really, when you think about it, when I talk to people too, I'm like, okay, think about 15, 18 years ago, the farmer that had the farmer's dog, right? Raw food, fresh food, all that kind of stuff was nowhere on the market. That dog was getting fed O'Roy, okay? Probably one of the worst kibbles you could probably ever feed ever. It's a Labrador Retriever. They would say now Labrador Retrievers are so prone to cancer, right? But that Labrador Retriever was on the farm, lived till he was 15, 16, 17 years old. He might have had some lumps and bumps and tumors on him for sure. And maybe drinking better water and having better food would have helped with that. But he lived a high quality movement and life until they were 15, 16, 17 years of age. Don't tell me it's not because they're outside with fresh air, sunshine, darkness at night, hot and cold exposures, and grounding to the earth with their paws. It's the
Right.
biggest needle mover, right? Like we have performance horses and dogs, just like we see in the human world too. They're pumped full of supplements and the peptides and the exercise and the training programs. And yeah, they probably stay healthier longer than our traditional Americans. But some of them still come down with cancer. Some of them still come down with illnesses. Some of these dogs still suffer from allergies or skin issues. How much Wi-Fi are they being exposed to? How much deficiency of natural light are they having to live with? How much light is on at night when they're trying to sleep and their owners are in bed? Biggest needle pusher. And I recognized it in my own life. I was the guinea pig, and I'm not the only one. Everybody that's in our quantum circle, you start changing your life, and it's the biggest needle pusher. I'm not going to say that supplements don't help or other things don't help. But to me, light is the biggest pusher, and we're light beings. We have light sensors in every single one of our cells. And when they're not receiving the proper information, how can our amazing bodies work so well and be optimal?
Yeah. Yeah. When you think about, we talk about how humans evolved outside under the sun. And so we are biologically adapted to needing that light. And like, it's that, of course, the same is true for animals and then some. And I'm just thinking about my cats. I have two cats, and one of them he is like an outdoor cat. He would live outside 24/7 if he didn't need food. And he brings home all his little victims and he loves it. The other cat, she's like is a less committed to the outdoor life, but every time I open the door, she scurries out and like rubs on the ground with her little paws in the air. And I feel like she's collecting electrons. Like she just goes out there and rubs around in the sun. If it's she'll stay outside if it's nice. But if it's a little chilly, I'm coming back in. But every time I open the door, she runs out and does that.
Yeah.
And I feel
And
like she's just instinctively going to get what she needs from nature before she comes back where it's warm.
yeah.
Because it's really cold here right now. She's
Oh, yeah.
still doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got like 13 degrees here too. It's pretty chilly. But yeah, the animals know. Like, we don't have to tell the lions and the tigers and the giraffes how to be healthy out in nature. Some of those statistics as well for our domesticated pets. I think it's 60% of cats are obese and have metabolic issues, 40 or 50 for dogs, and then 30% on horses. Now think about that. If you look at wild dogs and cats and horses out in the wild, none of them are overweight. None of them have metabolic diabetes, right? That's just diabetes. We call it a metabolic condition in the animal world, but it's just diabetes, which means you don't heal well, you don't perform well, you're prone to secondary conditions, and you die sooner. That's just the facts. And so it's just so crazy to think that like light is tied to all of our metabolic issues as well. And luckily, in the red light side of things, we've got really great researchers now, like Jeffries, that's coming out with really great research on red light therapy. Just 10 minutes of it as a small square on the back is reducing blood sugar by 30% with 10 minutes of red light therapy on humans. And that's something our company wants to start working with on animals to show that and prove that. we've just scratched the surface on some of those things. But the health statistics overall is that main topic. It's not very pretty on the animal side either.
Yes. All right, let's dive into that since you brought it up, because that's always one that like breaks people's brains. Is they're like, what? My light can lower my blood sugar? We're just such a strong connection. No, lowering my blood sugar means not eating sugar. Lower my blood sugar by not eating sugar, and that's it. That's the only way. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that research, whether it's on humans or people, but just let's just wrap our head around. Red light therapy changes my blood sugar level. What?
Let's just talk about the very basic foundations of that. That again, every single cell in every single system that we have in our body, so endocrine, respiratory, reproductive, musculoskeletal, it's all waiting for those light signals from outside and that full spectrum of light of all those beautiful colors that give us information to do things. And so we can actually see where each one of those light colors will come down and change systems in our body. And we are starting to show that, for example, blue light, which we like to tell people at night to avoid or on our cell phones, the blue light is going to increase your cortisol and increase your blood sugar. And that makes sense when you're outside in nature, right? We would get blue light during the middle of the day. It's super strong energy. When we used to live, breathe, work, build, have families and all of that outside, you needed that energy for lots of things. You were building stuff, you were cutting wood, you were having babies, you were making a fire, you were making food. And so you need all of that energy and that cortisol and blood sugar during the day to be able to be strong enough to have endurance and strength to do what you need to do during the day. But our bodies were built with these intelligent signals that once it got dark, it was time for your body to now rest so that you could have that energy again the next day when the blue light comes out and to recover and do it all over again. And so now with coming inside to our modern lives, we've cut off a lot of those signals. And so we don't have healthy light and dark signals. Our body doesn't know what time of day it is, what temperature it is. And so that affects everything that's a system in our body, including the endocrine, which can come down to your metabolic issues. And so if you're only exposed to lots of blue light, first of all, it's already going to just increase that cortisol and blood sugar levels. So we're all running around fight or flight and anxiety and all kinds of extra endorphins. And again, during the day, that's great and super productive. At night, not so great. But what we're also missing in modern life is in our modern life, we're getting just blue light. And so when we were outside or when you go outside, you get blue light with all the rest of the other spectrum colors, red, near infrared, yellow, green. And that red and near infrared are your big brother wavelengths of protection and deep absorption and healing. And so it'll also come in stronger at sunset and sunrise to prep your clocks and things like that. So it makes sense that I think the red and the near infrared would come in and just help balance those levels of that cortisol, blood sugar. And obviously, as it gets darker through sunset, that's why you only receive the red and near infrared to cue your body of like, all right, we need to shut off the cortisol. We need to shut off the blood sugar. We're going to actually start ramping up melatonin, our different hormones that we need for regeneration and rest and sleep, anti-cancer, all those kind of great things. And so it just shows there that the light can come in and do that. Now, what I will say is a little easier on the animal side versus human side to prove this is the agricultural industry has been using light forever, a really long time. It's still funny to make the connection. So like, for example, they'll keep chickens under bright lights like 24/7 so that they can produce more eggs. Because again, productivity, that blue light brings in all that energy to keep going and have your body keep running. Now, granted, that sounds like a great thing, but like how quickly is that going to age you? How quickly do those systems just burn out and die and be
Yeah.
finished? So the blue light will actually age you faster, where if you had those light and dark cycles like normal chickens, like even right now, it's winter. I have a farmer right down the road that I get fresh farm eggs from. They are amazing. The yolk is super orange. Guess what? Right now, I ain't getting no eggs. So chickens are like, nope, we're not laying. It is cold. I'm freezing. Like my reproductive system does not want to work right now. We're getting more dark than we are getting light because it's the middle of winter. That's normal. And that's when our bodies are intelligent and know that. On the horse side, even on those expensive thoroughbreds, we like to breed them and have babies in the middle of winter, which is not what they do in nature. And to do that, it's for reproduction and money reasons, number one. But to do that is they'll put the horses under light at night to keep the hormones going so they can actually breed and come into season when they would not be doing that in the winter. They would be saying hell no as well in the middle of winter out in nature. And so we've been doing this for a very long time. And so I'm like, okay, you can see that the light is affecting their hormones. That's a physiological effect, and it's just by light. So that kind of, I hope, helps explain like how we've been using light to actually show that it does change hormones and physiological and biological like features and processes in our body. So why is it so weird, or do we question and make it woo when we take either like a laser or a red light device and put it on the body and think that it's not going to do anything?
Yeah, it's of course it will once we understand that our bodies are like programmed by light. Like our biology is programmed by light, and that is true for probably all living things.
Yes.
I was talking to someone recently and they were like, and even non-living things. I'm like, okay. Forget who said that.
Team,
So,
you were
yeah.
right. I like to all drink rocks. I'm like crystals, rocks, so they do.
Yep.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so let's talk about red light therapy. So you realized how important light is. And you took a look at the animals and their chronic illness epidemic. They are clearly not getting the light that they're supposed to get. So I think so you created the sweet little doggy blanket. I have one. I love it for the animals. So a lot of people, when they think about red light therapy, the first thing they think about is, yeah, it's to heal an injury or if my dog has arthritis. So for those acute situations, let's talk about how red light therapy works. And then we can get into the other reasons.
Yeah. There'll be plenty to talk about for sure. You could talk about light for hours and
Yeah, we
hours.
could be here all day.
Hours. And now that we have been running a company for a year and a half, I know we'll get into some of that too. You started to learn just the different areas of where there's a lot of lack of education or clarification. In our company, we really do have a large goal of wanting to educate. We do realize, even just in the quantum aspect, but even just in that red light industry aspect, which lasers have been around since the late 60s, early 70s, there's still just a lack of clarity and education, especially bringing it to the mainstream of pet owners and how it works and why it works. And yeah, and one thing I guess I should make clear is that our products as well, and when I talk about red light therapy specifically, I am talking about red and near infrared because I've started to realize now that's becoming an issue in the mainstream of it only has red wavelengths, it's not going to work, or it's got to have red and this. So when I do
Okay.
speak of red light therapy, I am meaning red and near infrared and
Right.
companies.
Okay. And that's important to note because I think in order to economize our words, we just say red light therapy, but any good red light therapy device has both.
Should. Yes, it should definitely have both. Yeah, I mean, saying red light therapy is way easier than red and near infrared light therapy, or that's even easier than photobiomodulation, saying that 10 times fast, bless you. So, yes, when you are looking for a device or when you're looking at red light therapy, please make sure that it has both. And the reasons behind that. So, as we get into kind of how red light therapy works, again, as we talked about, the sun has the full spectrum of light, all the colors. Your red and your infrared are your big brothers. Red is going to come down and give information to the surface level of your body and your skin and your eyes. And so it's going to go in 5-10 millimeters into the tissue. Really great for collagen repair, anti-aging, circulation, some natural topical, localized pain relief, and things like that. Near infrared is the much deeper absorbing wavelengths that can come all the way down into the bone marrow, nerves, soft tissue, which is amazing. The combination of the two, of course, gives you back what you would technically get out in nature. You would get both of them combined and all different types of wavelengths, which is just how it's measured of how it's coming into your body. And so the red and the near infrared come in and basically they interact with mitochondria. We talk about the mitochondria a lot in the quantum circle. And the mitochondria are bacteria that are in every single one of your cells. So you have trillions of bacteria running your body and functioning. And they are responsible for making your energy, ATP. Most people know that or remember that from school. They're also there to create your easy water, which is that fourth stage cellular water that we did not learn about in school. And then also they're there to create heat in the form of near infrared heat. And so the mitochondria are super amazing and they do so many jobs. And they also help in some of the processes we talked about once it turns dark into apoptosis, autophagy, anti-cancer cell, cellular responses and things we won't continue down that path. But the mitochondria are just super important that do a lot of those things. And so light interacts with your mitochondria. They're responsible and respond to what your environment is around you, more specifically, your light environment. And so the red and the near infrared light come in, it interacts with the mitochondria, asks it to do its job better through that electron chain transport. And it just asks that to do that faster and more efficiently. And so the benefits of red and near infrared light therapy are wide and varied and long. I pretty much tell people you can throw light at anything and everything, and I do. It's my first aid response before anything else, actually. Natural pain relief that's now outperforming NSAIDs. So, your ibuprofen and your NSAIDs for animals can cause a lot of gut upset and issues, especially long term. And so what if we could just use red light therapy instead that's non-invasive? You have a decrease in inflammation. I have seen some swelling on horse legs and bodies of animals disappear in like days, 3-4 days. Really incredible. There's a nerve regeneration effect. There's a hair regrowth effect, collagen, skin issues, increasing circulation, obviously, and then also hydrating joints and soft tissue. So all kinds of dogs, again, are dealing with osteoarthritis, arthritic issues as your dogs get older, jumping up and down. There's tons of medications out there and pharmaceuticals. Unfortunately, some of them are killing dogs. There's a huge problem with that a lot right now that dogs are getting, and they're getting it at young ages, and it is causing some.
What's that?
It's a pharmaceutical injection. It's supposed to help with arthritis and osteoarthritis. There's about 8 Facebook pages right now that I've just started joining where it's going in and it's killing the mitochondria, basically, is the easiest non-scientific thing to say about it. And so some of them are having seizures and dying in a couple of days, or the whole body just slowly over the months of receiving the injections constantly are just shutting down. So organs are shutting down.
So this is a pharmaceutical injection from the vet that's meant to alleviate arthritis,
Yes.
but it's having
The
side
weird,
effects possibly worse than arthritis.
massive side effects. Yes. And so that mitochondria needs to recover. And so I'm going to start reaching out to some of those groups and see if we can help or get some type of case study done as well to just show red light therapy goes in and helps the mitochondria. So can we go in and help some of these dogs recover some of that cell death and some of that mitochondrial death and actually recover and come back to normal, or at least just give them a good quality of life until, they can't. So anyways, but yes, so red light therapy can do amazing things and all of those things. And it's non-invasive, right? So light should never come in and cause any type of harm or damage. And when you build red light therapy through LEDs, which is what our products are versus like lasers, it does create a product now that the pet owner can bring home and they don't have to ever worry about any type of overdosage, harm being caused, hair or tissue being burned holes into, which can happen with lasers, unfortunately. They're more accessible price point wise than lasers, things like that. And so that's what red light therapy can do. There's over 7,000 scientific articles and counting already behind photobiomodulation. And so there's tons of science for the people that are like, well, where's the science? And even for the people that want to say it's woo, like NASA, like the spacecraft company NASA has been studying red and near infrared light therapy since the 70s to grow plants in space. So I don't know how much more like confirmation that you would need.
Yeah, and all the athletes use it. I don't follow sports at all, but my son does. And he told me there was a football player who was like basically written off because everyone was so sure he was going to get injured for whatever reason, I guess. And he ended up winning MVP that season. And my son told me that he would drive around inside of a van lined with red lights.
What?
And that was like his thing. I'll have to look this up for the show notes because I don't remember. He's a famous football player, but I don't know any of their names. But yeah, he was like, he'd get in his van and crank on all the lights. And he did not get injured and ended up having one of his best seasons. So when you look at what people whose lives revolve around peak physical performance are doing, they're doing this.
Yeah, no, and I think that's phenomenal. There is a performance enhancement effect, and there's some studies behind that already on the human side. Therapy. And so why not? If we can make racehorses run a little bit faster or a horse jump faster.
But yeah, prevent injury, I think, was like the key. I mean, it's a huge story right now how injured all the NFL players are getting.
Yeah.
And one of our IAQB alumni has written about this, and it got picked up like by the global media.
Yeah, the one with the Wi-Fi.
with the 49ers practicing next to the electrical substation. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so curious how they either open
How
that
that's
or bury it. I'll be very curious.
Yeah, they tried to bury it. The Washington Post, within 2 days of that post going viral on X, talking about the EMFs and light and the injuries, within 2 days, Washington Post did an article saying why that's nonsense. It's a nonsense conspiracy theory. And they put applied quantum biology practitioner in air quotes, or no, well, actual quotes. It was a print article. Board certified quantum biology practitioner. I was like,
Decent
okay, watching
spotlight,
this.
though. Sometimes controversy is good visibility. So that's
Yeah, I'm
good.
staying quiet. But yes. So anyway, it's like the can of worms is opening. And of course, it makes sense. Let's just talk about that for a second, because a lot of people will come to red light therapy for their pets due to an acute situation, like an injury or not recovering well from a surgery or something like that. So, talk about how red light therapy helps to recover from an injury.
Yeah. So again, it'll come in and innervate with the mitochondria and ask it to do its different jobs. So there are different wavelengths that also ask for different jobs and different things to be done. So again, like the red light wavelength for that surface level could help with a wound repair or scar tissue, because scar tissue can adhere to other soft tissue and cause gait analysis issues or problems. It can adhere to organs and cause issues there as well. So you don't want as much scar tissue in your body. So it'll go in there and asks for better healing of the fibroblasts or the collagen to come in and hydrate the ligaments, tendons, the fascia that's super important in our body that's communicating, like even for my hands to be doing this right now. That's the fascia doing that. And so the red light can make all of that just healthier. And honestly, for the therapy side of it, wounds, recovery, rehab, like there is just so much data out there to be able to find, and it will do that for you or your athlete or your animal all day long, every day. Like it should be more well known than it is. I think it's just because lasers have been so limited in some of their capabilities to truly shine, pun intended, on how light therapy can really help. And we intend on educating on that in our property too. But my even bigger message that I am wanting to get across to pet parents with a sly mission of like also helping the humans is about the light environment part, right? So if the animal is deficient in light, which if it's living indoors, it is. And so I actually am trying to start teaching pet owners that light needs to be seen as a supplement. Like the modern world's not going everywhere as much as, like you mentioned earlier, we should all be eating by 4 o'clock and in bed by 9 and outside all day working. Like as much as I do actually strive to be a feral hippie all day long, I'm not always capable of doing that either because of the modern world anymore. And so most modern Americans or people in the world are not able to do that either. They've got to go to school. They've got to take their kid to football practice. They've got meetings. They're going to go out on a date, whatever it is. You're not always going to be outside all the time or in bed by 9. And so where can we help you see that light is the biggest needle mover in your health, whether you're improving it or it's declining? And how can we bring that in as a supplement? Now, granted, I'm starting on the animal side of it because people will do almost anything for their pets, honestly. And I'm a pet owner. I understand that as well. But if they get the conceptualization of the light environment and supplementing their pets with red and near infrared light because they're deficient, no matter if they are a 2-year-old puppy with no quote unquote symptoms or diagnoses yet, or they're a 15-year-old dog with arthritis or pancreatitis, some type of inflammation system in their body, we need to be supplementing light. What would they do if they found out from their vet, okay, your dog is deficient in vitamin C and selenium and magnesium, right? You're either going to try to feed it through whole foods and or supplement that. And so we already know now with this discussion, like you are deficient in light, fact, like mic drop, like there, because of our modern life, because of our blue light bulbs, because of our blue tech screens, we are already all very deficient in red and near infrared light. We would have been bathing in it 24/7 outside. Every living thing and non-living thing, like we just mentioned, rocks, crystals, absorbs and reflects light, but it actually reflects near infrared light. And there's photography to prove that and show it. It's really beautiful. You've had so many speakers on here as well talking about near infrared light. And so we would have been bathing in that outside all the time, along with grounding and the other spectrums, right? But near infrared is really like the big one, and we're all deficient. And so that's going to really be our bigger message of before you reach for the pharmaceutical and before you even reach for the supplement, why don't you try light first? It's more accessible, it's non invasive. See how the animal or yourself responds from that. And then if you still need a little bit of additional support, then yeah, try the injection or the peptide or the supplement, because the red light therapy is only going to enhance those things. There's no contraindications, not so far in all the science and research so far. Light is light. The body knows light as light, and it will always just respond and take that in.
So it's not just when we have our dog is having an acute situation, like it got injured or it has arthritis, but like even our little puppies who seem to have infinity energy.
Yeah, they don't need anyone.
They are, unless they're outside all day long, they are mm, deficient in infrared light, as are most humans.
Yes. It's a big message. And most people stop when they have to think about that for a second, because light just still isn't mainstream yet. That's our goals, our hill that we're going to die on this lifetime, Meredith.
Yeah.
But um, it does make sense when people can think about it a little bit. There's still a block there maybe between purchasing it or not. Usually I can be like, hey, you can use it too. And then they'll purchase. But that is our bigger message to really bring to the public and mainstream. And hopefully that still at the end of the day does get people outside more, moving and grounding with their animals. And we're never going to replace nature. My products don't replace nature, but they do create a really healthy supplement to bring the body back to balance and vitality. And I hope improve longevity and bring that message of light to the animal industry as well. I applaud
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it was Scott Zimmerman, and he works really closely with Glenn Jeffrey, who was just on Huberman talking about all of this, which was so amazing to see. I'm like really grateful to that Huberman podcast for sharing this message so widely. So yeah, Scott Zimmerman was saying that they call it like it's like having malnutrition
Yes.
or scurvy, the 21st century scurvy. It's like you're so deficient in something that your body needs so badly that you are having symptoms and your biology is breaking down because it doesn't have what it needs to function properly. Or to your earlier point, like you're having an atrocious Lyme disease episode as opposed to a slight rash because
Yes.
your body doesn't have what it needs to deal with life.
Yes. And then it even gets into some of those nuances where we talk about, because now that red light therapy has become such a health trend, which is a beautiful thing, right? We always want things like this to come out and become popular and start becoming mainstream. Unfortunately, when there's a price tag or a profit attached to it, that can sometimes come in and misconstrue some of the facts or getting things to come across in a really positive light. And now it's unfortunate because there are some people that are coming out that may be qualified with a license or a bunch of letters behind their name. And they'll sometimes denounce this therapy now because there's not enough education being pushed with this. And that's really unfortunate because most humans, and especially pet parents too, because for the pets, they don't feel like their dogs can speak to them or their horse can speak to them, even though they really can. It's not in our verbal form, but they can. And so they feel helpless. And so they feel very stressed and desperate when their animal is sick or when they're sick with something. Most of us came to this information and knowledge through an illness or a diagnosis most of the time. And you're just pulling at straws. I can't tell you how much money I spent on tests and supplements and all of that when going through Lyme. And sometimes you do need that. I'm not here to denounce that by any means, but it is unfortunate sometimes when there's such a healthy modality like red light therapy, red and near infrared light therapy, that now it's getting denounced by some people that just they're not even showing their science or showing their clinical studies of trying to say that this doesn't work. And we're very big on that in the company. We don't have clinical white papers yet. It's something we're working on. But I did case studies all the time. Like I threw light at every funky thing that came across my radar. Let's put light on it and see what happens. And we've had some really fascinating cases. And that just helps put the proof in the pudding for it.
Tell us about one of the case studies that stood out for you.
I do always love to share Marley. I think he was probably shared in our last podcast, but in case somebody hasn't heard that. So there was a dog that was rescued off the streets in Massachusetts, a little Yorkshire Terrier mix, perfectly healthy at the time, except he was just lost and abandoned. And so the owner, Kara, adopted him and took him in, needed some love TLC. They walked every day. A year after having him, he went completely paralyzed from the neck down. Paws curled in like this and couldn't walk. She probably spent like $10,000 on ultrasounds, diagnostics, shots in her spine.
You're not joking. People will do anything for their pets. Wow.
Yeah. And Kara's not affluent by any means. And she built a wheelchair for him. This was her heart dog. This dog means everything to her. And he blew up twice his size. She made a wheelchair for him between her and her mother. Like they were feeding him on their own, taking him out to use the restroom. She would wheel him out to the beach in his wheelchair, like anything to just still connect with him as a dog. He still wanted to eat and drink. He still wanted to be here. And finally, she went to see a second vet for a second opinion, and he had a laser. And so he started lasering the dog's neck for 30 minutes. He wanted 3 times a week because you need to be illuminating your body and your animal's body more when they're sick. And we can dive into that a little bit. But it was $250 a pop for a 30-minute session. And so Kara could only do 3. But in those 3 sessions, she had seen the paws start to uncurl and move. And so it was the first improvement she had seen at all. Luckily, she did find out about us, and I sent her a blanket, and we just hit him with a lot of light. We hit him with 30-minute sessions twice a day. In my head, I kept thinking, okay, he's been paralyzed for a year. 30, 45 days, we'll be seeing some changes. He was standing in 5, and he was taking his first steps at 10 days, and he was walking for a little while and stumbly at 14. By 30 days, he was already starting to like walk 5 or 10 minutes. And now we're over a year on the case, and she sends me videos of him all the time. He walks 30 minutes every day. He reduced his body size by half and back to normal with not as much inflammation. He eats on his own, drinks on his own, gets up on his own, pees and poops on his own. And so quite miraculous. And his case, I actually told her to go back to the vet after we'd been working together for 6 or 7 months. And they took new images, and they were able to see the spine better than when he had so much inflammation. He has 4 herniated discs that are inoperable. So if you think about that case, if the vet would have seen that originally and he was paralyzed, they would have told her to put him down, because what are you going to do? He's paralyzed. We can't operate in on it, because their systems are usually cut it out or poison it out. They're not taught to think about the other systems and things they can try. And so now he gets to be a dog and have a life again. Another really great story that we did on a dog case, I had somebody contact me from Canada. She had a dog that was a Great Pyrenees. He was like 7 or 8, super healthy. She had him on. This is a perfect example.
So opposite end of the dog spectrum. We've gone from a Yorkie to a Pyrenees.
And the skinny was healthy, right? Okay, so he was intact. He'd never been castrated, because they're also starting to show now with like early castration, I'm talking like horses, early neutering or spays for dogs can cause hormonal issues and body physical issues down the road sometimes. He'd only had his initial vaccinations as a puppy, walked outside all the time, and on a natural food diet, so not kibble. So this is a perfect example of like healthy dog doing all
those are all the things. Yeah.
Right? He ended up getting a peroneal hernia. So I had to look this up to make sure I knew what it was. But so he had this big, massive hernia that was coming out of his rectum. And it was causing a lot of pressure when trying to use the restroom. Sometimes, sorry, this is going to be a little TMI for the audience, but this is a good case. He literally would get poop stuck in his rectum because of the pressure and because of the hernia getting so big. Now, luckily, again, the owner had found out about us, and we talked about it. And I asked, okay, what does your vet want to do? So the traditional route for these cases is that they normally cut the hernias out. And then also, like in her dog's case, he was an intact male, right? And they say that these hernias are being caused by the prostate being too big because of too much testosterone of being intact. Does that make sense to you? Right.
This animal's too natural.
This animal's too masculine.
He has not had enough surgeries. That's why he has a hernia.
And the surgery, by the way, that these people are charging for, anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000. And guess what? They take the balls and they take the hernia. And guess what comes back 4 or 6 months later? The hernia.
The hernia.
Now, I'm not saying all cases, but she had this group on Facebook, and she talked to lots of different people. And of course, so then they just do surgery again, right? So the owner was desperate. He was suffering. It was just awful. And so she comes to me and I'm like, I don't have a case study to tell you that red light therapy will fix that. I have no idea. I'm super curious to try though. And I said, at least what I can tell you is the red light therapy is going to reduce his pain. It's going to hydrate that area a little bit. So maybe it'll help him ease to go to the bathroom, things like that. I knew for sure like it would ease the symptoms. So she got the blanket. We started doing 2 15-minute sessions a day. And again, he'd already been like this for about a year. So I knew, okay, it's going to take some time. This hernia was pretty big. Meredith, in 6 months, it was gone. Gone.
Wow.
He can poop on his own. Like this little hunchback area of his spine is better. Now, what I do think the cause is for him, now she hasn't been able to find a vet in the area to go do this with. I asked her if she could get to a vet that would take an x-ray of the spine, because in her history, she had told me that her and the dog were in a car accident like a year and a half or 2 years prior. The dog was in the back seat, big, huge, Great Pyrenees, right? And so I'm like, okay, it probably got tossed forward. It was like from behind. And probably got tossed forwards, probably got like a herniated disc or some type of closeness on a nerve. Because again, he had like this roach back towards his sacral area of his spine. And I'm like, yeah, if there's all of your nerves that come out of your spine are responsible for all your different functions in your body. So moving your fingers, going to the bathroom, like digesting food. And so if there's a pinched nerve there, then it cuts off blood supply to maybe the prostate or maybe the rectum or any of these different areas. Like the whole testosterone ball prostate theory, I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, what came up with that? So she still was never able to go get x-rays. So I still don't know his root cause. As a body worker, knowing that's how stuff works in the body, that's what I want to lean to. Now, there are different cases of that specific diagnosis where they have shown an enlarged prostate. And so they do want to blame the hernia coming from the swelling and the inflammation of the prostate. Is that coming from still having their testicles? I don't know. Could the prostate be getting inflamed by Wi-Fi or bad food or deficiency of light? Maybe. So we've shared that story. That one was just really cool that I had no idea if it was going to actually fix. Yeah. And that dog seems to be doing great. She has a blanket now and she uses it on him every day. And I get updates on him from time to time. And so he seems to be doing really well as well. And then in the future for cases, as we talked about Jeffrey's earlier, there's all this great research coming out on the human side now. So like the metabolic conditions. He had a great one that was a triple blind placebo study. You can't really get a better outline of a study than that. And it showed that ICU unit patients, so humans receiving, again, 10 minutes of red and near-infrared light therapy, got them out of the ICU 30% faster. So for me, I'm
Incredible.
like, every single surgical center that does dog, horses, cat surgery should have these blankets in their hospitals, like for pre and post recovery. Like when you're in a hospital, again, what is it? All blue lights and sterile environment. And yeah, no sunlight, no red and near infrared light. So what if we could bring that to the animals that are getting surgeries and all this trauma to their body anyways, like to just recover faster and get them home faster where they're going to heal and do better anyways. So we want to do some stuff like with animals as well on that side, especially the metabolic side. There's so much money tied into horse and dog performance where the metabolic issues are like one of the biggest health problems because they know it's leading to all of the other illnesses and diagnoses. So if we can show that the red light therapy does move the metabolic in the healthy optimal range, then it's a no-brainer. Like, why would you not?
Yeah. At the Institute of Applied Quantum Biology, we're launching a practice-based research accelerator, which is open to practitioners and entrepreneurs and inventors to create the protocols to standardize research outside of having to fund a big clinical study and to be able to do it yourself. So far, no one's doing animals, but if you want to, there's no reason why not.
We're already in communications with a big rehab center here for equines. And so we're about to release our horse blanket. And so that's what we'd want to use because it's a full body blanket, obviously. And so we're already in communications with them this summer. We'd like to get at least just a very small pilot study done, 10 or 20 horses. They've got it for sure. And they see, even as a rehab center, like, can this help with, that was their very first question. Can this help with metabolic issues? Because we can't get horses out of here soon enough because they don't heal fast enough when they have metabolic problems.
Right.
The wounds won't heal, the respiratory issues won't heal. And they're just, and I mean, they've got an oxygen chamber. They've got a cold saltwater spa. They've got a laser. They have our red light therapy leg and wraps now. And they're very on board, very like science first and
That's
progressive.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
going to be really cool. I can't wait to hear what comes out of that research.
Yeah.
And it's a great point, right? Like to talk about research for a minute, I think everybody has this idea that you need a statistically relevant number of people or animals in order to draw any conclusions. But there are methodologies and protocols that you can apply and gather meaningful evidence and meaningful data from smaller numbers. So if you have a small practice or you're like Jackie's connected to this clinic that has a certain number of patients, animal or human, right? Please remember that you can be contributing. And that's the next phase of our mission, is to make sure that, all of this gold that you're uncovering by bringing the red light to these animals gets written up and tracked and published, so that our experiences in the field will carry weight towards policy, towards recommendations, towards protocols, because it's like in the real world outside of a lab where everything happens.
Exactly.
So that's fantastic that you're looking to do that.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. Wherever that small sliver of time and energy on my plate will come from, we'll see. But sometimes life is just magical when you're on your path. People just show up. And so there's definitely people that are very curious and interested in helping,
Yes.
putting together the research.
Hey, if anyone wants to be a research partner
Yeah.
and who loves horses
or dogs, we would love to see it.
or dogs.
And honestly, Meredith, if I can so there's actually another foundation here that does give very large grant money to research for things that do move the needle in the horse industry as a whole. They're backed by more thoroughbred industry, but they always say, obviously, that's where a lot of the money and resources come from for horse research. But if you can prove that you can move the needle for all horses, then they'll grant you the money and you can do an actual large study. And of course, I'm sure as you, my brain goes further, because if we can actually finally prove, even though they're already doing it with horses and light and dogs and light, that the light changes the metabolic system, and that's where you get granted. And then that actually is your proof in the pudding that like light works. Done. Mic drop. Officially proved, right?
Yes.
Then I want to take that a step further and do the real research of like horses outside, horses inside, dogs outside, dogs inside, and show you that the light environment is way more important than the exercise, sleep, or diet. Not that those things don't matter, because they do, but the foundation is the light that really pushes the needle. So we have big goals and aspirations.
Woohoo! I love to hear it. Love it. Jackie, thanks so much for coming back, and tell people how they can find you and where they can order a little red light blanket for their pets.
Well, and we even forgot to mention, so we did rebrand this year as Animasol because we were originally EquiSol. So if you have listened to my past interviews, it was under the brand EquiSol. That's just the name that had come to me first.
Yeah, and listen, nobody remembers. Just tell us what you're...
We're called Animasol now.
Okay.
All animals with light.
All animals.
Yes, all animals.
All right. And you are on Instagram. You are on Facebook.
Yes.
And what's your website?
It's animasol.life. It always has a different ending. .life. L-I-F-E. So animasol.life.
So A-N-I-M-A.
Yeah.
Soul, S-O-L.
Yes.
.life.
Yes.
All right.
Animal soul without the L, like it's anima soul. So yeah.
But soul like the sun, not soul like...
Yes, that's right.
My eternal soul.
Yeah.
S-O-L. S-O-L. Anima soul. S-O-L. Okay. Super exciting, Jackie. This is so fun to watch your journey.
Yeah.
And it's such an important mission. We all love it. And we will see you again soon.
Yes. Thank you for having me on again. Thank you, everybody, for your time, and reach out with any questions that you have regarding light and your pets.
You have made it to the end of another episode of the QBC podcast. Congratulations and well done. Don't forget to visit us at qbcpod.com. That's qbcpod.com. You can find all of the episodes, all the links in the show notes, the tools that I use, links to the Institute, all of the things. And please do join the QBC free community if you haven't. That's where we send most of our updates. All right. Thanks for being here. If you also, please make sure you rate this podcast wherever you listen to it. There's so many millions of places these days, but it really helps. We really appreciate it. Thank you for being here.